I'm Jobby, Jobby from Jobby 2 and JobbytheHong, and this is DJ Occult, my brother-in-law. We actually did a extensive talk on the original show back in the day.
Yeah, we did it on a podcast, the Real Vibes podcast, on my channel, DJ Occult.
And it was great. Like, if you want to know more about the original show, I recommend you guys go check that out. But we're just going to talk very freely about 3.0 plus 1.0 and the rebuilds in general. I actually rewatched it. I rewatched it the day after we watched it together. If you have the time, I would recommend rewatching it just to absorb it a little bit more. But
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I'm pretty good on it. I watched a lot of other content creators kind of do reviews on it. Talk, I wanted to see what the ether, what everyone else was thinking about the new series and how it was interpreted by others. And I'll have to say that it was very shallow. Like, everyone cares about the surface level interpretations. And the part that was very, very disappointing for me is that we were slightly unhappy with the ending.
yes,
For us, it was a bit disappointing. For everyone else, it seems that was a much better scenario for them. So it seems that it just hit better with the majority of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that may have to do with the fact that the original series was also misinterpreted and was looked at superficially. So therefore, this new version with this soft ending, I feel like it was just a bigger win for most of the audience.
And that's a point that I actually touched on in my solo review, was that I think a lot of people misconstrue what End of Eva was doing. The point of End of Eva, at least from what I got out of it, was that Shinji, as a broken, traumatized character, had to literally go through the devastating effects of instrumentality in order to slightly improve a little bit. Like, that's awesome. That's realistic, because if you're that broken, it will take to hell and back to get you even slightly closer to self-improvement. But in this new one, it seems that his growth kind of does a complete transformation, like an instant transformation.
Right, and we were talking about that before, right? Main characters, how they play the I can't describe it, but there's always the underdog kind of character, the weak character that everyone pushes around, and then at some point they go through an evolution, and then now they turn this character around at the very end of the movie and try to slip everything in where he kind of corrects all the situations in his life.
Yeah, which it's something you would expect from Naruto or My Hero Academia or something. I mean, I like both of those, but Evangelion set itself apart from those shows because the protagonist was so insufferable and weak and broken.
Also, in the original ending of the End of Eva, you get this feeling of the reason why I believe it's more real, right? And it connects more with us as an audience, is because in the End of Eva, even after his transformation, he still has like you said, he still has a long way to go. As the scene where he's choking Asuka on the beach.
Yes.
It's a big metaphor for the fact that he's not done.
Exactly.
At the end of this movie, literally, he rebuilt the whole universe to be, in his worldview, perfect, with all of his friends still alive. And if you look closely at the end scene, all of his friends are there. Even people that have died are all resurrected and just happy and just life is normal and shit. It's just,
except Masato for some reason. It's like he missed Masato. I don't know. He forgot.
I just thought it was a weird ending, and I'm looking at other creators, and I'm just disappointed that no one has pointed that out. I was happier with the more realistic ending.
Me too.
And and it just didn't hit the same way. But also, I have some other points that
go ahead.
So there was this character that they reintroduced, right? And there's all these theories as to why the creator put this character in, and most people are actually really happy with this character as well.
Mari?
Mari Iscariot.
Or Mary.
Which,
Mary Iscariot, yeah.
Mary Iscariot, you pointed out, is the same last name as Judas from the Bible, right?
Yes.
So that's an interesting observation, because Judas, he betrays Jesus in the Bible. And at the end scene, Mary is kind of like a double agent. Like, we can't figure out on whose side she's playing on. And if you notice, I noticed something really, really interesting. And one of the end scenes, towards the end of the last movie, that would be so it's not 3.0. It's what do you call the last?
It's just
4.0.
Just 4.0, yeah.
Let's just call it 4.0. Yeah.
Yeah, let's just call it 4.0 for simplicity's sake.
Yeah. So in 4.0, towards the end, she has a brief conversation with Gendo's goon. What's that dude's name?
Futsuki.
Yeah, his only goon, his army of one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little Futsuki.
Yeah, she has a brief conversation inside of his aircraft, and she's talking to him as if they recognize each other, as if they know each other, right?
Yeah.
And I forget exactly what he says, something along the lines of, "Oh, it's you again." This and that. And I thought that was really interesting, because what if she's been an Eva pilot for so long that, because Gendo's wife, which is
Yui,
right? She was experimenting with Evas and was trapped inside of an Eva, correct?
Yes.
So what if Mary was from the same time frame, but she was never trapped in an Eva, but she does suffer of the curse of
Eva, yeah.
So therefore, she could be much older, but still look young, and that's how maybe she would know Gendo's goon. Because
I think you're correct, because after rewatching the movie, there's a few scenes during Gendo's instrumentality where you see Mari in some of the shots where Gendo and Yui are bringing in Shinji to the lab, like some of those black and white shots. You see Mari in the background, and I didn't notice that on first view.
She's there,
but she's
really?
there. Yeah.
I've got to look into that.
Yeah. I'm telling you. Rewatch it, and I think you're correct. I think you're right. I think she is the same age as Gendo and Yui, and she knew Futsuki and them for a while, I think.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. So that was one of my first theories, because I didn't have any evidence to make a confirmation. But that was one of my first theories, was on this character. I'm actually pulling up that image now, and I'm looking at it. And you're right. I see.
She's there, yeah.
I see Mary hanging out with baby
Shinji.
With baby Shinji. This is pretty good confirmation. I think that solidifies this theory for sure. Yeah.
And the fact that they didn't imply, or they didn't say it outright in the film itself. I mean, that's just typical Hideaki Anno storytelling, and I love him for it. That's the thing I want to get across, is that I do have a lot of critiques and criticisms for the film, but I still liked it, and I still like that Hideaki Anno is able to do what he wants.
Yeah, I think some of the sacrifices that he made in creating this new movie take away a little bit from the universe rules that my mind abided to when watching the first series, the show, right? It had some constrictions. It had boundaries, and then this new movie, I felt like some of those boundaries were broken, and it left me with a lot of questions. Like we were talking about.
That is something that I didn't touch upon in my solo review, but it is a good point, and it's something that I don't enjoy saying, but there is some truth to it, where that the original series was under so much limitations, whether it be budget or studio pressure, or time constraints, all of this, but within those limitations birthed this masterpiece of television, and subsequently the movie, which is one of my favorite movies ever, End of Eva. Because of the success of that original show, the rebuilds happened, and the rebuilds are basically Hideaki Anno unleashed. That's what it feels like, which is cool. Like, I love the fact that artists can still do this in this day and age, like create without any restrictions. But without restrictions, you get self-indulgence. Self-indulgence. There's a potential to disregard your audience, which I feel happened in the rebuilds at certain points. It sacrifices.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It sacrifices comprehensibility for unlimited creativity, and whether or not that's a good thing, I think that's subjective.
Yeah, we made the same correlation between Evangelion and a show like Twin Peaks, where David Lynch.
It's this very similar situation. Yeah,
he had constraints from early television that forced him to kind of inject metaphysical ideologies into everyday television. And so we got how you use the analogy, the sugar with the, what was your analogy? The pill and the
sugar with the medicine. Yeah.
So, I feel like that's what Evangelion was. They were kind of, it starts off as like a typical, robot cartoon.
Well, it was literally on a Saturday morning cartoon time slot. So it was a Saturday morning cartoon. They were constrained within that box. But within that box, Hideaki Anno started to introduce all of these crazy metaphysical concepts in a way that a lot of people can understand.
Yes, and then now when you open the door to people being free to interpret it, right? And so so David Lynch built a cult audience that then followed David Lynch and Twin Peaks for the last 25-30 years, and I feel like Evangelion is the same thing. Like, the cartoon built a cult following to the point where this new rebuild series was long awaited for, and people would cut off their leg to go watch this. You know what I mean? So the fact that he knows that it's going to be fully accepted no matter what gives him this, the openness to be creative in whichever way he sees fit. But then at the same time, it becomes more shallow, in my opinion, because then as more money becomes introduced, then things start to change. They can't be advertised in certain regions. There's a lot of promotional material injected into the film, like the beer and the chips.
The product placement. I don't think the product placement took away, but I do get your point, where money can sort of stifle that creative voice a little bit.
Yeah, but that's not as big as an effect. The bigger problem I had for sure was the actual physical parameters of the universe of the Evas, because I was used to these rules, right? Where in the first series, Yui comes down and they sense a really powerful AT field, right? So AT fields were a thing. We understood that every object had one, and the angels had blue blood, and they had identifying markers that told us they were angels, and we had this thing worked out. It was it had parameters, right?
It was solid world building.
Yeah, when instrumentality happened in the first series, everyone turned to orange goo. From
LCL.
my understanding,
Yeah.
if all life forms that are based of Lilith would have turned into LCL immediately, and I never ever thought about the range in which that would happen, but you know, in the new series, there were people trying to get off planet to escape third impact, or I should say fourth impact. And I couldn't comprehend that, because then I started thinking, well, is there a range to how far Lilith can turn people into LCL?
The introduction of space kind of opened the door for it opened a lot of unnecessary holes in the world's logic. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And then the way they started, like the technology, the reverse engineering of the angels, to the point where they had like angel spacecraft and angel missiles, and like it just got a little too crazy for me, for my taste at least. You know, I did like the visuals; those were really awesome. You know, the sky battles and
the movie is technically impressive. It's clear that a lot of effort went into all of these designs and all of the animation, but to what end?
Yeah, exactly. Like I it didn't feel cohesive. Like there wasn't like for me at least there wasn't a pattern that I could follow that satisfied my inner, like, you know, like my inner I would say wish to have everything fit like a perfect puzzle. Like the whole point of the first series is you're figuring out as you go along this puzzle, and you're like, whoa, and you're putting together these pieces and you're getting really excited about having figured out some things. You start creating theories. The second one was not like a puzzle. It was glamorous, you know, there was a lot of cool visual stuff, but my mind wasn't working to figure out what was going on. I was just a little bit too confused, to be honest. There was too much going on. And then the time gaps as well, the 14-year-old time gaps here, and then another one there, and then, you know, what happened in between the time. The characters look different. You saw my face when we were watching it. I was like,
that's
what?
right. That's right. I mean, I like the idea of a time skip, but I don't know. I think they may have gone too far in a few places. What can I say?
I also like the idea of a time skip, because then, you know, you start figuring out the characters. You're like, oh, okay, so those are the same characters. It's just been 14 years. Like, you start putting these things together, right?
Yeah.
So I do like it, but like you said, maybe they went a little too far with it. Maybe 2 time skips was too many, you know?
Wait, was there 2 time skips? I think it was the one time skip in 3.0. And then was there another time skip for the final one?
Am I wrong to say that there was another time skip?
I think I think the first time we watched it, I believed that it was a time skip, but after I rewatched it, you know, without the alcohol, I realized that at the beginning when they're in Paris, Dr. Akagi says it's been 16 years, but I don't think that means 16 years since the last movie, because after that Paris scene, we cut back to Shinji and Asuka and Rei walking, you know, wandering the wasteland. So maybe not like a 16-year time skip, but probably like a few months, maybe.
Oh, that's right. Yes, it was a few months.
Yeah, like a few.
Yeah, that's right.
Like them walking from. Yeah, walking from the Unit 13 Spear location to the little village, which I actually like the little village. I actually liked that part.
I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I was about to say exactly the same thing. The little village was very reminiscent of something you would be watching in the first series. It just felt familiar, you know? Like you got to see all these characters. Like
it felt grounded.
A little slower. It felt grounded. It moved slower, right? Mm-hmm. And so we got to see a lot. And then we got to see Yui kind of go through a transformation,
right?
Rei.
Tentative name Ayanami, because technically she's not, you know, she's a clone.
Yeah, we got to see the clone kind of learn humanity and then suffer the repercussions of it because of how she was created, and Nerve blows her up, which was awesome. I think that was great. See, I hate to say it, but suffering, when we see it, in this series, including the first, it's rewarding because it's not that we're after the suffering. It's like I'm not unhappy with the ending because I'm a sour person and I want to see
right.
a depressed ending. I just want to see these characters reach realizations, and the whole feeling of the first series was very meta, and it was very character building and character dissolving. And I feel like in this series it was not that at all, at least in the last movie.
No,
the first two movies moved a little slower. The first two movies did move slower. They were okay. It's just mainly the last one where, like I told you, it seemed like the first three had better timing, and then the last one just kind of had everything kind of just compressed in there.
Yeah, just wrapped up like really quickly. And yeah, what you point out about the characters in the original show, this is something I actually point out in my solo review, is that the original show seems to convey the message that life is suffering, but if you work hard enough and you put the effort in, you can make something good out of it. Whereas in this new series, or at least what the ending implies, is that because you suffer, you deserve a happy ending. And that's not a good message. That's not a good message because everyone suffers, but not everyone deserves a happy ending.
I agree. I think I just still can't get over the happy ending. It just
not just for Shinji, but for everybody. Like, there was at a certain point after Gendo's little instrumentality, which I actually did like, but after that, Kaoru just comes in and is like, okay, I'll take over, and then they just go one by one, each character wrapping up each of their stories, and it just felt like, I don't know, it felt like a narrative slap in the face almost. We were with these characters, we wanted to see them grow and change, but ultimately they were just handed a happy ending. Shinji is handed a wife.
That's another thing, is that I think a lot of people probably are unhappy with which girl he ended. I'm sure everyone wanted to see like if you really want the optimal happy ending, I would think that you would write in an Asuka Shinji ending. The fact that the Mary got thrown in there kind of threw me off a little bit as well.
Yeah. I think within the context of the rebuilds, the Asuka Shinji wouldn't make sense just because of the time skip and how unforgivable Shinji is in Asuka's eyes. Like at that point,
right.
It's not like how in the original there was some leeway there. There was still potential for growth, which is what I mean. That's what it comes back to, right? End of Eva, how it ended. There was how it ended. It ended with the potential for improvement, which is reality.
Even improvement with relationships that he basically destroyed by being so weak. So even with all of the female-male relationships that he had, there was still room there for forgiveness and to get over those mistakes. But in this last film, if you notice, Asuka, she's beyond that relationship can no longer be repaired, right?
Right.
So
right.
The fact that they've cut each other off emotionally makes me feel like it satisfies those that are happy with cutting off sections of life in order to live happier on their own. Exactly how Shinji is sitting by himself, right, for months on end, and everyone is bringing him food and he won't eat it in front of anyone. He'll only eat it when no one's looking. Right? So to me, it kind of, I understand that people will relate to that. So I did appreciate that, at the very least, that there was something there to continue showing that Shinji was still a terrible individual, and he still hadn't learned anything. But that was also kind of
the problem comes in where his redemption happens a little too quickly. Like that, like I appreciate the fact that they're still keeping that aspect of the character where he is this weak, pathetic, and now genocidal character. but the redemption just comes too quickly. His realization, his self-actualization, at the end of this film, it doesn't feel like there's any more room for improvement. This is the happy ending. This is it.
Yeah, I feel like even at the very end, everyone, like, he's already committed genocide several times.
2 times.
You know what I mean?
2 times.
So he's committed.
It's pretty bad.
He's like 2 Hitlers. You know what I mean?
He's Shinji is the Evangelion of Hitlers.
Yeah.
He's a destructive force. He truly is a menace. He's truly a menace. Everyone who fears him in the rebuilds is justified in fearing him.
Yes, that's what I was going to point out, is that they do depict some of that fear in some of the characters, to the point where at the very end they're willing to cap his ass.
Yes.
Like they come up, they point guns at him, and they're like, "Nah, my dude, you're not getting in that Ava.
You cannot get in the Ava anymore." No, yeah, and I guess that begs the question, like, how far is too far? For for audience, I guess, for audience sympathy.
Ending. You can't give me a happy ending after that. Like, like everyone wants to smoke him. He's done terrible things. Like, I want him to pay the price, and then he can get redemption. If he doesn't pay the price,
Well,
if he doesn't pay
you can argue that the price he paid is the emotional burden of committing those acts, but it doesn't. They don't depict it quite like that. They depict his sulking and his angst the same way as he was at the beginning of the story. So it doesn't feel like the weight of genocide is really settling in with him. He's more so concerned about his own happiness. Not so much the concern of the people he murdered.
That's
the feeling
he is.
I get. Yeah.
He continues to be self-centered, and even though he nuked the world twice, he doesn't comprehend how it affects everyone else. He really is only focusing on his feelings regarding that situation. Like, he can't believe that it happened to him. Instead of thinking, I can't believe I did that to others, he's thinking, I can't believe that it happened to me, which is like so selfish. If I were to put it into an analogy, it's like someone committing murder, right?
Yeah.
And then them being led out on good behavior. Yeah. Like, I can't deal with this. Like, good behavior. I don't care about your good behavior. Like, you still got to pay. Right. And then once he's given the payment, then he can have redemption. I feel like that it just makes more sense to me that way.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like, now with that in mind, the original series and End of Ava, they punished his character way more for much less.
That's absolutely correct.
And after talking about, like, the ending being too happy for this genocidal version of the character, the End of Ava ending would have been a much more appropriate fate for this Shinji. Like, if this rebuild movie ended somewhat along the bittersweet notes of that movie, that would be more of a payoff. It would be his comeuppance.
Yes. I think if you were to swap the endings between the series and the rebuilds, it would make more sense.
Yeah, because what was the worst that he did in the original show? It was just what? I mean,
bust a nut.
I mean, that's pretty bad, but it's not genocide. It's not planetary destruction. So his redemption, his redemption makes sense.
In terms of character development and how we feel about these characters, and the justifications and the morality behind these characters, we were slightly unsatisfied. But I was also unsatisfied with the occult pattern that wasn't being followed in the rebuilds, because the first series is strictly Kabbalistic, and we get a really clear idea of, okay, so there are angels, and there are people that are of the Lilin, right, that come from Lilith, which is also an angel type being who took over the earth, even though it rightfully belongs to the angels. So the angels are come to earth because they want to claim their planet back. So they want to merge with Lilith in order for earth to become an angel world. And so we know the character dynamic. We know what Gendo wants. We know he wants instrumentality. We know what Seele wants, and we know Gendo's double cross. We understand Kaoru and his plan, and we understand how they're working together because they have the same goal. Because Kaoru, he's the first angel, so here he's of Adam, right? So we understand these things. All of it makes sense. But in the rebuild, I feel like there was little attention put on the occult meanings behind some of the Kabbalistic interpretation, particularly with Kaoru. I'm like, I really have focused on that character because he was very difficult to comprehend. But we know for sure that he works with Seele and Gendo, right? Because they have a similar plan. But at the very end, Kaoru feels like he's being tricked by Gendo, and he's like thinking, no, this is a mistake. He tells Shinji not to pull out the spears, right? He tells him don't, like, he has second thoughts about it. He says, no, don't pull them out. And at the very end, he basically got swindled by Gendo, who Gendo became like this super 4D chess player. He was like, honestly, I was on Gendo's side the whole time because he was just like, he was everybody.
I do like Gendo in the rebuilds. His manipulations, like they turn it up to 11, but in a good way.
Yes. He literally sat there and waited for people to make moves and never made a move and still won somehow. You know what I mean? The only reason Gendo lost is because they somehow pulled another spear out of their ass. You know what I mean?
The spear that goes back to the whole, I suppose, overly optimistic tone of the movie. That the spear of Gaia, I believe that's what that was called.
Yes. And I found that to be really strange, And then also Gendo's instrumentality. In the first version, I really liked how he was murdered. Like it was so amazing to watch him realize that he did a terrible thing to Shinji and that he's paying the price for it now. And at the very last moment, you can tell that he has some form of regret right before he dies. And in this film, Gendo's instrumentality was like weirdly sentimental and mostly focused on like fatherhood and almost how they tried to assimilate Shinji with Gendo and trying to say that they're both the same, that they're both loners, that they're both outcasts, and etc., etc. And I found that to be strange as well.
I thought that was pretty consistent with the original, though, because in the original, while they didn't show it, they did mention that Gendo and Shinji were basically the same person growing up. I actually liked the Gendo instrumentality stuff in the rebuild. That's like one of the few things that I don't have issue with. But going back to like his death scene in End of Eva, that is an amazing scene. And honestly, that would have been a better ending for this Shinji.
Yeah.
because what Shinji has done is like unforgivable.
Yeah, I think that would have been a better ending.
Yeah.
And Kaoru in this series becomes Shinji's friend. He plays piano with him and kind of prepares him to get into the Eva again. And Shinji makes the same mistake. He basically gets finessed yet again. He hops into the Eva, and all that stuff happens. And the part that really confused me was that Kaoru, he's an angel. So his sole purpose should be to create instrumentality so that the world can become an angel world. I didn't get those vibes from him. You know, he was like Shinji's friend almost.
Yeah,
does that make sense? Like,
I think, yeah, and maybe that's explained in like other material, but from the movies, it feels like instead of playing up the angle that he's an angel, it seems more so that he is a predestined friend of Shinji. His sole purpose is not to bring about instrumentality, but to be Shinji's friend. And I don't know what that means.
Exactly.
But that's the feeling that I get from this Kaoru.
But Gendo fixes that, thank God, by making him the 13th angel. Just Gendo's such a genius. And
Gendo's
just
awesome.
murks his ass.
Yeah, Gendo's a good villain.
Yes, he was. He's a much better villain in this movie, for sure. In the last movie, he's just awesome. And
man.
you were also confused watching this, because I remember you kept bringing up, like, there were all of these, like, calls to the original, right? Like the blood streak on the moon.
Yeah, the end of Ava connections. What is it?
But they were not real. I feel like they were more like fan service than they were.
Yeah, like the South,
connections.
like what the South Park, the member berries. Like you remember? You remember?
Yeah.
You remember Evangelion? I remember.
Exactly.
Cool.
And it wasn't really like plot driven, you know?
Yeah, like all of the end of Ava callbacks in the instrumentality scene. I almost felt a little bit offended. I mean, because I like End of Ava so much, but like they used the same music, they used the same like cinematography and all of this, and it felt almost like the callbacks weren't earned. Like how are you gonna draw a parallel to End of Ava when this is like completely its own thing? Like don't bring it
Exactly.
Yeah, like don't bring End of Ava into this. You know, like it's not connected at this point anymore.
Yeah, really disconnected to the point where even like, I don't know, like even you know what else? Like Gendo, he worked really hard, man. Like he really put in a lot of effort into what he was doing, and I just feel like they took it away so easily. Like he was like straight winning, you know, and like how did he lose? You know, I just don't understand.
And you're good. And I think this will put it into perspective how simple how simplified the story is compared to the original. But I really do think that Gendo was ultimately defeated by the power of love.
I'm gonna. Oh my god!
Isn't that what you get?
No.
Isn't that what it feels like? That's what it feels like.
Yes.
That's the kind of plot that the rebuilds feel like that simple.
And not only like, even the symbolism changes. Like Shinji has the spear of hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Gendo has the spear of what is it?
Despair.
Oh, despair. And it's like, yo, you separated hope and despair into two different characters. You're doing the superhero versus villain thing, but the original didn't do that. The original pointed the very true fact that everyone is capable of committing heroism and villainism. Like every person is both of those things, but in this version it's been separated, like at the very end too. Like it's really weird. And I did like the introduction of the satanic symbolism, right? So there was a few things that were pointed
like
out.
the beast backdoor code 666.
And then Mary, being Judas Iscariot, and there was a few other things that I can't remember at the moment. We pointed out that there was some satanic elements to the new version.
Yeah.
But we didn't see that in the old series. But also they didn't continue to elaborate on the satanic aspect. Like it just kind of like brought it into the story, but that didn't go anywhere. And
I feel that a lot of like the occult thematic qualities of the rebuilds, a lot of them feel that way, where they just introduced them. And again, this is gonna sound awful, but it seems like it's more so for aesthetics. There's no deeper meaning behind a lot of this stuff, and that's a criticism that gets like levied at the original show. But if you really look into it, like everything is consistent with the story they're telling. This one, it doesn't feel so. It doesn't feel that way.
Exactly, and I think that if people make that judgment now, it's carry some weight.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, at first, no, I was like, no, you can't judge it that way. It means a lot. And then now I'm thinking I'm judging it that way now, you know?
Yeah,
at
exactly.
Least for I did really like the HD quality and the bridge between like animation and like some graphical stuff that they put in there that I thought was really cool. And
the new technology, it's always nice to see.
Yeah, new tech on there was really awesome. So I did enjoy that. I really enjoyed the 5.1 surround as well. The original.
Yeah, that's right. Your sound system was scary. when they were on the bridge. Yeah,
we want to watch it loud, you know. So
yeah,
but yeah, I enjoy the fact that they took the time to write or to record multiple tracks and put in real actual Dolby 5.1. I thought that was really cool. So I enjoy the updates to the series.
Like the technical qualities.
Yeah, the technical qualities are awesome. Except for the kind of like the weird live action stuff at the end. I thought that was kind of strange. But the first one also has a bit of live action, right? It has like some.
It does, but it feels more like naturally integrated and appropriate for the story.
Yeah,
that's just how I see it. Like like in End of Eva, there's that dream, the dream conversation that they have right before Shinji breaks through instrumentality. Right before Giant Naked Rei disintegrates, like that whole live action sequence. Yeah. But this one, was great. Yeah. This one just felt more like a. Yeah. This one it just felt more like a weird. Well, it's an aesthetic choice.
Yeah. Do you think? What's the creator's name?
Hideaki Anno.
Yeah. Do you think he had less input in this rebuild series than he did in his original? Like,
no,
do you think maybe there were?
I think he had more input. I mean, I could be wrong. There is a documentary on Prime that I should watch about the making of the final one. Maybe I can get some more insight on that. But I think he had even more input in this one.
So do you think that maybe his personal ideology changed over the years?
That's totally possible. I mean, it's always the story, right? For the original show, he was going through a lot, like with that. That's a really shitty thing to say, but it's also another limitation. He was going through depression.
Yeah, I mean,
with the
to be
original
honest,
run of the show,
best creators, the best artists are always, in the realm of suffering, and create. Well, it's like amazing.
Like that's the thing. I want to make that clear. I don't wish that upon anybody, and I'm not saying that artists should be depressed, but if you look at it, you're
gonna set up a dungeon so that you can get
exactly. An artist farm. I mean, that's basically what Korea does with their K-pop stars. But
oh no.
but you get what I'm saying, right? Like, I don't want anyone to be depressed. Right. I'm really happy for Hideaki Anno that he is a happier person now. He's more financially well off, and he has the opportunity to do something that he deeply believes in. I love that. Same thing with David Lynch. But
I think our original assessment was pretty good. That sometimes, creators, when they've done something big, it just kind of goes to their head. They get headstrong, and then they start creating with their ego as well. So I think that happened to David Lynch in the second series of Twin Peaks. The
Return
versus the Return. Yeah, maybe David Lynch is full of himself, and that's why we got. So he's always been full of himself, to be clear, but but now he's like iconic, and I'm assuming that it's the same thing Evangelion, they've reached a new status of, you know, not only wealth and not only success, but also with that comes some ego, and I think maybe the ego is what affects his creativity. I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe, yeah. Like at this point, that's all we can do. We could just speculate, but we're just trying to justify that change of tone, that change of message.
And do you think, or like, do we really sound sour right now? Like, are we being sour?
I'm wondering. I'm curious.
Yeah.
I think we'll just have to leave that to the comments. We'll see. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this review. I have a feeling this is gonna piss a lot of people off. Evangelion discussion, Evangelion conversation online is very flammable, and
I believe you.
I just realized I had that realization as I was recording my solo review. I was like, oh no, I'm really jumping into a fire right now. Maybe I should just stick with talking about toys.
Nah, I do want to watch this documentary that you were talking about, though, where we can get maybe some insight on the creator himself, and maybe kind of fill in some of the missing pieces. But the fact that we're doing that, the fact that we're trying to look for justifications to fit it in our head properly, is a sign that maybe it is the actual creation. It's actually the actual rebuild that we are unhappy with. It's not us being sour. You get what I'm saying? Like, I feel like there's some
we're looking. Yeah, we're looking at the work itself critically. I don't think that we're sour. We're just critiquing a piece of art.
Yeah,
as all works of art should be critiqued.
Absolutely. You know, but I guess it does happen where something gets too big and then it just gets beyond criticism. You know, sometimes that just happens. Yeah, I mean, we were up till 4 a.m. watching the rebuilds. So
we marathoned all of them. Yeah, that is something I want to reiterate. I like the movie. I don't think it's bad. It's just maybe in comparison to the original is where I have my problems. I think as its own thing, it's fine. And
let's be clear on another thing. In comparison to other work, I think it's better than a lot of other work even. I think it's better than in Devilman. I think it's still pretty good than a lot of other stuff, in my opinion, you know?
Yeah. You like Eva more than Devilman, confirmed?
I like the Eva rebuilds more than Devilman, sure.
That's a valid opinion. I won't take that away from you. but definitely the original Eva is still the tops. I think End of Eva as a movie is still legitimately good. The fact that this movie's identity is so tied to that original film was ultimately a mistake. I feel that if they were gonna do something completely different, do something completely different. Don't remind me that End of Eva exists, you know?
If the rebuilds are gonna be completely different, I want something better, you know? Is that too much to ask? Are we being...
I don't know. I would have preferred if they just stopped reminding me of the old one. So if they did that, they didn't have to surpass the original, because that's what they're doing, right? When they point out the existence of the original, they're setting that bar already. So that bar is set by them, not us. They brought it up. They brought in the blood on the moon. They brought in the red water. It reminded me of End of Eva. Now I have End of Eva in my head.
And you want that bomb.
And I want that. and if you're gonna do something like, if you're gonna remind me of End of Eva, you better make sure to deliver on that promise, whether it be as good as End of Eva or better. So I guess I'll just ask you one more question. What score would you give it? Bringing it back to like a normal movie review thing. What grade would you give this? I guess out of 10. This new one.
Like a Rotten Tomatoes, like a 4 out of 5 or something like that.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 or like out of 10. I would say out of 10 because that allows for a little more nuance.
I'm gonna say 7.5.
7.5. I would say that the rebuilds as a whole, I would also give that a 7.5 out of 10. Yeah.
And where do you rank the original?
The original, like the original show plus End of Evangelion, like as its own work, I'd say at 9.
You rank it at 9.
Yeah, there's still some issues that I have with the show, like narratively speaking, that like prevents it from being a 10 for me. But 9, yeah, 9 or 9.5. But if we're talking about End of Eva by itself, 10 out of 10. I fucking love that movie. Yeah, it's such a good ending. I love that movie so much.
Yeah, you're right. You know, I think we're on the same page then. Yeah, for the most part, I think the original hits between 9 and 10 for me, and the rebuilds hit between 7 and 8 for me, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm. So not bad.
Not bad. I mean, you know, that's still pretty good. I would put Devilman, for comparison, I would put Devilman at like 7. You know?
Yeah.
So I still think it's better than Devilman. You know, Yawamushi Pedal, 10 out of 10.